This is the Between Part 2. Let's recap. I want to first start with the hunter recap. And here, all I want to know are your conditions. That's it. I'll just read them off, in fact, because that's all I need. Mr. Nelson, the beast, Hank Nelson, you currently have a shaken, drained, and an injured shoulder. All three conditions are filled.
Pretty roughed up.
Yeah, a little bit. Green, you have sapphire intrigue. What does that mean? I don't know. We'll find out. Mr. Quinn, you don't have any currently. And Mr. Taliford, you have object of fascination. I see you have a picture now as well, Mr. Taliford, and I think Mr. Taliford could get it. I really do. I feel confident he could. Yeah, great. So let's jump over to threats. We have one active threat currently. It is the St. James's Street ghost. A little summary. A maid at 18 St. James's Street was found dead, apparently from shock. This story was carried in an old issue of the Illustrated Police News, and you all determined that it is in fact a ghost that did it. We have two questions here, either of which can be pursued. The first is, which part of the house is the ghost attached to? Answering this question unlocks a brand new custom move that everyone gets access to called Old Bones. The second question is, how can we get this ghost to pass on to the next world? This is the actual how do we resolve the threat question. Answering this question does allow you to resolve the threat specifically by performing a quieting ritual. The complexity of the first question is 4, and the complexity of the second question is 6. You currently have, I need to cough, hold on. You currently have 6 clues. You heard a story about dishes and other vessels overflowing with blood. Constance's head, the neighbor told you that. You observed a mirror and other glass things cracking in a spiral pattern. There is a novel about a woman who murders her cheating husband that keeps falling from the shelf in the kitchen. A story about a room that seems to burst into flames. The sensation of fingers tightening around your neck, and a stack of old love letters from another time period, an earlier time period. This was witnessed by Mr. Taliford in a vision. It's possible those letters might be available somewhere at 18 St. James's Street. And the aspect of the Janus mask that we have for this one is the Mask of the Unquiet. That has been used, so that's no longer available. And our side characters that we've met so far are Alice Beale and Harold Beale, who are the heads of the Beale household who live at 18 St. James's Street. Alice Beale seems very exasperated by this whole situation and ready for it to be done. So exasperated that she just was like, sure, come in, take a look around. Maybe you can help. I don't know. She can't keep any help because of the circumstances of the house, except for Irma Thicket, the cook, who is another one of our characters. And Mr. Beale has essentially been trying to make money off of this situation. He is the person who sold the story to the Illustrated Police News in the first place, causing all this trouble for the household. And he has a new venture that he's pursuing, inspired by his son, Roger Beale, which is to sell tours or little overnight stays in a haunted townhouse. So that's sort of where the St. James's Street ghost stands as far as threats go. You have plenty of clues to answer either question. To answer a question, to take a crack at it, you only have to have clues equal to half the complexity. So you could have gone to that first one with just 2 clues if you wanted, but you'd be at a kind of a big disadvantage to answering it. But in any case, that's where that stands. Are there any other details about last time that we want to remind us of before we begin? Okie doke. In that case, why don't we go ahead and begin the next phase? We are back at the day phase. And so long as there are less than 3 active threats, you get a new active threat. Now, this day phase is not, so you're all used to Brindlewood Bay. And so unlike Brindlewood Bay, which is fairly episodic, this game, they keep stacking until you start getting rid of them. So up to 3. It can be more though, if certain playbook specific threats come into play. So this next day phase is not necessarily the immediately following day, but I think in this case it will be. I think that's interesting, especially based off what happened to Mr. Nelson last time. Mr. Nelson probably had the most sort of intense experience, although Mr. Taliford did as well. But we have a new threat, so let's talk about it. This threat is called the Limehouse Lurker. Jenny Johnston, the proprietor of an opium den in Limehouse, which is a sort of kind of a lower socioeconomic class neighborhood in London. The proprietor of an opium den in Limehouse, she tells you a story that has not yet reached Scotland Yard or the papers. 3 people have been found dead in the neighborhood in recent days, the bodies completely exsanguinated. The first was a sex worker called Soft Jimmy. He was found in a dark corner of the opium den. The second was a young mother, Charla Bell. She was found in an alleyway behind the Limehouse School, which is a workhouse. And the third was a Chinese sailor, Xiao Donghai. He was found outside a pub near the dock. The pub is called the Dog and Whistle. Jenny, an informal community leader in Limehouse, has been keeping the bodies in her basement at the opium den. She's hesitant to go to the authorities because she fears it will cause trouble for the small but thriving Chinese immigrant community in the district of which she's part. She heard that Hargrave House has experience with matters such as this and has asked for your help. I shall pose a question to whoever has the highest reason among you. Who is that? It's a tie
Mr.
between Mr. Taliford and Green. Yeah. We'll go with Green this time. Green. Hargrave House knows about creatures that drink the blood of their victims. They're called vampires. Nothing surprising about that. However, a detail in Jenny's story convinces you this particular vampire has the body of a small child. What is the detail?
I think bite marks are hidden at the back of the knees.
Very good. Now, the vampire is physically a child, but that doesn't mean it's young. Vampires never physically age beyond how old they were when they were turned into a vampire. And an old vampire has to be handled in a very different way from a young one. And so we have a threshold question here, which is the vampire young or old? It's a complexity 4, and answering it unlocks the next appropriate question. So that is where we are at with the Limehouse Lurker. We also have another aspect of the Janus mask available here, and that aspect is called the Mask of the Sun, which is available to bump up your die rolls if you need it. And so we'll just continue with regular day phase procedure, which is having scenes. So a couple of you have some conditions now, and in the game, the most efficient way to clear the conditions is to have or to trigger a move called the vulnerable move. It's the equivalent of the cozy move in Brindlewood Bay. The vulnerable move, in it, you basically have a scene with one other hunter, while one of you, and only one of you, is doing your vice. And then that allows you to clear conditions. It also gives some other possibilities in the fiction as well. But that is the best way to clear a condition. And the day move is the safest time to get it done. I want to go around the table and just see what everyone's interested in doing, and then we'll figure out where the scenes are going to go from there. And so I'm going to go in the order of the sheet. Well, Mr. Nelson, you are absolutely saddled with conditions. What do you think?
Sure am. Well, actually, conveniently, my vice is opium, and the most recent threat is or at least it makes sense to start looking into an opium den. And I think after the night that Hank just had, he's rather eager to pay a visit. So if another hunter is interested in coming to the opium den, I think that's where Hank wants to go for dual use, but mostly to get some opium.
So I feel like an opium den is where like Mr. Taliford would be all about that too. So he needs to go minister to the people in the opium den anyway. So
Sounds good. Okay, so maybe a scene with the two of you, a vulnerable move scene at the Opium Den at Jenny Johnston's place. I think that would be great. Mr. Quinn, what do you think about for today?
I have an inkling in my mind that something might be going on more with Mr. Beale. And so I think I want to pursue that. I think maybe it's more than just capitalizing on what's happened in his case. So
Mr. Beale is an accountant, and you can find his office very easily. So no worries there. Green, what about you?
I think Green might have set up a visit to a theater for I'm sure a extremely attractive lady and Mr. Quinn later in the evening, which is also playing a comedy, which of course is Green's vice. So he kind of takes, two birds with one stone there. Yeah, I think that's the plan, and then to kind of dress up Mr. Quinn before that and kind of share this, appreciation and this anticipation of the state and this visit with him.
Yeah, I like it. So, okay. So to be clear, you are going to go to the theater first. Is that the plan?
No, I think I'm probably going to prepare things for Mr. Quinn, because it's probably going to be like because there's a date, right? It's probably going to be like an afternoon thing, like a comedy, like a light afternoon
I gotcha. Yeah.
thing, something like that.
Okay, sounds good. We might come back to that scene then with Mr. Quinn and Green at the house before Mr. Quinn goes out to the Mr. Beale's office. We'll pick up with Mr. Taliford and Mr. Nelson at the Opium Den. Let's talk about the Opium Den. So Jenny Johnston's Opium Den is very dim and smoky. There is a really heavy ammonia-like smell when you walk in, because that's what opium smells like when it's burning, it's ammonia. And there are people lounging all over on mats and cushions, smoking the long opium pipes. One person stands out in particular. There is a man reclining on cushions, smoking opium, wearing a quite fancy yellow silk sort of smoking jacket, or really more of like a dressing gown kind of thing, and soft slippers, but importantly, a sun mask over his face with just the mouth cut open for smoking the opium. A paint the scene question. Everyone, people from all walks of life patronize Jenny Johnston's. What do we see that indicates this?
So I think there's different rooms with different levels of like furnishings, right? So there's, when you walk in, there's just the bare room with people flopped out on the floor, but then, you can kind of see through like the silken curtains into the like opulent places that the upper class go to get their high.
Thank you.
I think that they sell some opium supplies out of the den. and all of the ones that they sell directly are like the price tags on them are exorbitant, because the only people who would be taking it into their own homes to use are, of course, the wealthy, and they want to keep those who are more impoverished to keep coming back to the den.
I think there's an assortment of opium pipes, in some of them like heavily decorated, maybe even gold, and others are just like very old used wooden pipes and so on.
I think that they have different like grades of opium. Is that a thing? Clearly, I don't know, but they have like fancy pure opium, and then have like the cheaper stuff that's like cut with something else, perhaps maybe something nefarious, who knows. And so they can like hit all of the price points of their clientele.
I love it. So why don't we have a scene with Mr. Taliford and Mr. Nelson? You are in a small private room with the opium. Yeah, take it away. Role play.
I think after entering the room, Hank immediately goes over and begins like setting up the opium, getting it properly rolled, putting it over the burner, getting it sort of warmed up before it can be put into the pipe, the whole process. And he invites Mr. Taliford, to have a seat there. I think they're in one of the rooms that it's not like the fine rooms, but it is one that has like a couple of cushions as opposed to just hang out on the floor. And he gestures for Mr. Taliford to have a seat and says, "You come to the den before, Mr. Taliford? I don't believe I've seen you here."
Oh, well, Taliford has like a little crystal glass filled with a little bit of sherry or something, and that he's sipping on. He's like, "Well, I don't partake myself, but I come to minister to the wretches who I find here. No offense intended, of course."
Oh, none taken, of course. Sorry, got a dog. After all, I am a bit of a wretch myself.
Well, I don't believe that's true, Mr. What was your name? Nelson. Mr.
Please,
Nelson.
please. Call me Hank. No one calls me Mr. Nelson anymore.
Well, I'm gonna sip a little bit. Hank, this is a dangerous life that you're living here. This path does not lead anywhere good.
Well, I think he has a seat and he takes a drag of the pipe. Now the opium sufficiently heated, and he sort of closes his eyes, and you can tell that is sort of savoring that first hit experience. And then he responds to you a little bit more languid. Well, I came here hoping for just that.
So why do you want to destroy yourself?
Here, it might be worth pointing out, kind of checking in with the rules now.
Mm-hmm.
So the vulnerable move is triggered. It says, when you have an intimate moment with another hunter while one of you is engaged in your vice, you may clear an appropriate condition. You both get to do that. If it's your vice, meaning Mr. Nelson in this case, you can also stumble on a clue. You tell me what it is, or you can invite Mr. Taliford to ask you about your past. You must answer truthfully, but not necessarily completely. So this is one of those times when you can kind of do that, right? So it's up to you.
It would make sense to stumble on a clue here, but I also think that I feel like Taliford is sort of leaning into asking about the past, and I like that direction. So do you have any specific question?
I mean, I think that kind of was my question.
Okay.
It's like, why do you want to destroy yourself?
That's good. I think we'll come back to it.
Okay. Let's
check in with Mr. Quinn and Green. Green, give us the so this can be a vulnerable move with you two as well, even though only you have conditions to clear. And in particular, Green, you're only able to have such scenes or request such scenes with Mr. Quinn. So depending on how the scene goes, that's in play, especially if one of you is doing your vice. But in any case, let's just have the scene with the two of you.
So I think Green, so it's basically the preparation for the vice, right? Because Green is bringing Mr. Quinn to this comedy place, so he can also watch while they are on the date, he and this lady. And so Green is, I think the two of them are in Mr. Quinn's quarters, and Green has laid out nice clothes and some accessoires and is kind of putting these things together and maybe combing Mr. Green's hair, putting some lotion on his face, that sort of thing. And he's saying, you know, this is a really nice lady. And I know I told you all about this mysterious stranger that I met on the road, but I haven't seen her since. And I think we should really forget about her. We cannot always be, there's so many beautiful people in the city, and I might have been too much focused on her the last days, and now I think, yes, you should enjoy yourself tonight, this afternoon, and maybe we'll meet her again, maybe we won't, but let's forget about her for now. I'm sorry I disturbed you with all of this talk about her and so on, you know?
Okay, so I just want to say, I think that Green is the only person allowed to touch me without gloves. So I feel like that also like sells like the intimacy of this moment. And I'm going to take your hand, Green, and I'm going to say, you know, I trust you entirely. But I'm sure we'll see that woman again. Who is it that we're seeing tonight?
It's this lady, Sarah. Remember, you've met her once before, and you've kind of lost interest in her, but she has been, let's say, calling. She has been sending some gifts, beautiful flowers, and I thought that maybe it would be nice to give you and her maybe some more time. And you know, this doesn't have to be too much of a commitment. It's a little afternoon fling, you know, with the theater, with the comedy, and if you like, you can take her to have something to eat, and if not, then that's it. What do you think? I thought that might be appropriately engaging, but also not too serious for today.
Yes, that's fine. I mean, I don't know about this comedy thing. Tell me about the comedy thing, Green. It's I don't quite understand, but you like it, so.
Yes. I mean, I do not hate it. That's true, but it is, you know, and I think Green is always like talking too much around Mr. Quinn and too quickly, and really stumbles over his words. He says, "Well, it's. I hope it's funny. It's these an old couple, and they're bickering, and then there are some things that are happening. I think a misunderstanding between them, and someone else comes into into the situation, you know how these things go. It's always very much. You shouldn't worry too much about the plot and so on, because you're actually focused on your lady friend, right?
Right. You'll be joining us for the viewing of this comedy?
Oh, I will. I will be there to attend to anything you need, like drinks or something like this. You know, if you need anything, I'll be there.
I think discussing the comedy is sufficient to trigger the vulnerable move, even though there's, you're not actually at a comedy, because it's kind of a funny scene. In any case, yeah. So Green, you can either stumble on a clue or invite Mr. Quinn to ask you a question about the past. As well as clearing a condition if you think you've cleared it, but it's up to you if you think you've cleared it. I don't know if you have or not.
I think he has. They have convinced themselves at the moment that the Sapphire Woman is not the most important, and that Mr. Quinn should focus on other things. So I think Green will invite Mr. Quinn to ask about the past by saying something like, yes, you know, the comedies, I when I was still living in Paris, that's where I sometimes I went to the theater, and it somehow stuck, you know. It's nothing.
I'm going to ask Green, why did you come to London?
Back to that. Let's pick up with Mr. Nelson and Mr. Taliford. So, Mr. Nelson, you were asked, why are you trying to kill yourself?
So having just taken a hit of the opium, he looks at Mr. Taliford with fairly languid eyes and says to him, "Well, I'm sure you understand the idea of having a history, Mr. Taliford. I have a rather sordid one back home in the States, and we haven't known each other very long. But I will say that I am more than meets the eye, Mr. Taliford. And someone like me, in the long term, ought not exist."
Well, I have good news for you then. In the long term, none of us will exist. And, you know, I think he kind of looks around and he can see like the sort of the dark forces kind of pulsing around the edges of the room. And he's like, if you don't mind, if I could offer you some advice, there are things in this world that are trying to tear us down, and they're all around us at all times. And you need to keep your guard up, or they'll be successful. And, you know, I think you're just making it easy for them when you do this sort of thing. And I've seen what happens when they get you, and it's not a pleasant way to go. So that's all the preaching I'm going to do, but I think you should keep it in mind.
Mr. Taliford, I thank you for your opinion, for your advice. I fear that one of those dark things you refer to is who you're speaking to right now.
That feels like a good cut. Let's go back to Mr. Green, or Green rather. You're muted, Adrian.
Sorry. Green says, "Oh, Well, I was in the employ of this this person. Since I've worked for you, I've almost forgotten their name and what they were. In any case, that work was not available anymore, and I was bored of the city. I had to leave, and they are kind of not really going into much detail of why they had to leave or why that work ended, but kind of avoiding that part of it.
Yes. Well, that was not much of an answer. Anyways, just put your ticket on this Miss Sarah's tab for today.
Yes, of course. And you won't even really see me. I'll be at the curtain, and you just motion to me when you need something, and I'm sure you will be enjoying yourself very much.
Mm-hmm. Well, you also just take time to enjoy this show, this comedy.
No, thank you. I will try, and I'm very grateful that you allow me to come, and that you like and this and what you're open to all of these things that I with my little mind try to put together for your enjoyment.
Well, you normally choose delicious activities.
Very good. Mr. Nelson, Mr. Talford, did we clear conditions, do we think?
So I think that Ms. Head saw me going into the Opium Den and was just scandalized and was like, now she just sees me as a reprobate. I'm no longer an object of fascination.
Very good, very good. Mr. Nelson?
I think reclining here, sharing this chat, and most notably having some opium, I feel like my shoulder feels a lot better.
Very good. Well, so let's pick up that scene then. At this point, you're both at the Opium Den. Jenny Johnston knows you're there, and she knows who you are because she came to Hargrave House to tell you about the bodies in her basement. And you are welcome to investigate as you wish. There's also Jenny is in the main sort of area of the Opium Den, keeping an eye on things. She's sort of dresses like she's always entertaining, right? With a sort of corseted gown and hair and some tasteful jewelry. And she has a mirror that runs along one side of the Opium Den so that she can always look, kind of see what's behind her and what's going on, So she's sort of just making sure everyone's needs are being tended to. And there are a few other workers in the Opium Den as well. And of course, we have this unusual man wearing the sun mask who is enjoying the wares. Yeah, so I guess I'll just start with Mr. Talford. What do you do?
So I'm inclined to just go look at the bodies if we can just go to the basement and check them out.
Yeah, she'll take you down there herself if you want. Mr. Nelson, what about you?
I think he'll invite the man in the sun mask to come over and share some opium with him.
That sounds good. Let's pick up with down in the basement then. So she takes you down to the basement and she has a lantern, and we'll leave the lantern with you. And the basement is mostly just like a lot of dusty crates and rolled up carpets and other things, barrels. But along sort of like stacked up on a few crates, sort of set up to be like a table, are what are pretty obviously 3 bodies wrapped in cloths, stacked on top one of the other, one on top of another. What do you do?
So I'm gonna mention that you probably this isn't a long-term sustainable solution. Like
She says-
these things are going to attract attention before long.
Well, she says, well, that's what this is for. And you'll notice she has like great big bundles of like flowers and herbs like all over the place to sort of like, you know, keep the smell down, right? She says it's only been a couple days, and well, that just means Hargrave House has to work quick, right?
Well, I suppose that's right. So yeah, I mean, I'll just like poke around on the bodies and like start unwrapping some dead bodies and seeing what there is to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Do the information move with reason.
Okay. 11.
Hey, nice. We'll come back to your clue in a moment. And let's go over to Mr. Nelson. Mr. Nelson, this man wearing this yellow silk dressing gown and slippers and the mask, sun mask, he comes into your little room at your beckoning. I think these little rooms, they don't have doors. They're just like little nooks, basically. And he sits down on the cushions next to you. And he says, how wonderful to make your acquaintance, Mr.
Hank.
Hank. What an interesting given name. And you're American.
That's what people keep telling me. I suppose it must be true.
What do you think of our gloomy little island so far, Hank?
Well, it rains a lot more than I'm familiar with, but there are some perks. And he like holds up the opium pipe. Some things here are better than at home.
He says, yes. Well, I would tell you my name, of course, but I'm here incognito. I have to wear this mask because, you see, I am a member of the royal family, and it would be most scandalous for people to see me in a place like this.
He just like blinks slowly at that. Well, I suppose it would be. My father would be most displeased if he saw me here now, so I think I share your feelings. Would you like a drag?
Yes, of course. And he takes it, and he takes a little drag. We'll come back to that. So, Green, anything else? Since I know we're losing you soon, Adrian, anything else you want to do before we do so?
I think before Mr. Quinn leaves, Green will point to all of these watches that he put out on the table, and that I think nobody has yet really, because people have probably been so busy and they have not really looked into. So, I remember there was this thing about watches, and I just thought it would be good to bring all of these. You could do some experiments and find out whether ghostly activity is connected with this. But it seems you all have been so busy. But take a look if you find the time, or maybe Mr. Nelson can do so, or I think you will find it quite enlightening, hopefully.
Yeah, so I'll just kind of like have Green, because I would never do it myself, roll up the watches in a little wrap so that I can take them with me and, I don't know, check them out at the house, maybe, potentially.
Yeah, sounds good. So, Mr. Quinn, you have an afternoon date, but before, you can have the cab driver drop you off at Mr. Beale's office if you wish. And I think we'll just frame up there. I think that there is a young attendant who sort of meets you. And I think, how are you dressed right now? How do you look right now, Mr. Quinn?
Oh, today I think it's all about the like crushed velvet goldenrod like jacket with a nice like flowy, fluffy like undershirt kind of sticking out. And I am wearing today extremely tight, like deep blue, also crushed velvet. It's gonna be a theme. I think that's my favorite fabric. Deep blue, super tight, like skinny pants. Like they're not anything anyone else is wearing in London at this time. They're very strange.
I think the young attendant gets up and he's from his little desk. I think he like manages the front for several offices that are on this floor of this building, right? And he's sort of like just looking down at you, like at your pants and their tightness, and he's sort of a little flustered, and he says, can I help you?
Yes, I'm here to see Mr. Beale.
Yes. Did you have an appointment?
No, but I'm sure he'll want to talk to me.
Yes. One moment. And he gets up and he goes into the office. I think there's a minute, like where the door is shut. It's like frosted glass. You can't quite tell what's going on, but they're talking about something, and you're just left in this little lobby with some plants and things. What do you do?
I guess I'll take the opportunity to see. So I have a working theory that potentially Mr. Beale has actually murdered the maid. And so it's his place of work. Maybe I'll find some evidence there. I'd like to like poke around and see what I find.
Yeah. I mean, out of character, it has to be the ghost that did it. But even if your character believes,
I know,
it's
but
Mr.
I'm
Beale,
working up to a like how we can quiet the ghost ritual thing.
So just poking around to
just poking around.
Are you going through things that you're not supposed to be going through, or are you just looking around?
No, I'll go through things that I'm not supposed to, but I'm also not doing it like subtly.
Okay, that's
I'm
good.
just very entitled to everything in the space.
I like it. Do the information move weirdly with presence. Yeah.
What is my presence? Ooh. Oh, that's a 7.
We'll come back to that in a moment as well. Mr. Taliford, you got 11. That's a good result.
Yeah, so can I use the Mask of the Sun to make that a 12 plus?
Of course you can.
Let's do that.
We'll come back to the Mask of the Sun, but you can go ahead and bump it up to a 12, which means, according to the move, you also find a mastermind clue. Okay. So let's talk about what you find there. You get a regular clue to start. So you're looking at the bodies, and the thing you're going to notice on one of the bodies that definitely stands out is there's a drawing. Looks like a tattoo at first, but then you realize it's not. It's been drawn with some kind of charcoal, maybe. On this is Soft Jimmy, the young male sex worker who was found in the Opium Den. On his inner thigh has been drawn what appears to be, it's a somewhat crudely rendered picture of, well, it's like a boat. A boat, and the boat has what appears to be the boat's on a little water, and in the sky of this little scene are two suns shining down. It's a strange thing. And if you take the time to look at all the bodies have a similar mark. They have like suns, like drawn on their bodies. And then you'll look up and realize that on the wall where the bodies are being stored is a larger depiction of a boat on water with multiple suns in the sky. That's your clue. We'll come back to the mastermind clue in a bit. And the Mask of the Sun in a bit. Mr. Nelson, if you're still there.
Sorry, my dog seems intent on destroying my speaker system today.
It's okay. Mr. Nelson, you're there having this smoking opium with this alleged royal in the sun mask.
I have an idea of where to lead this. If
Sure, yeah.
I think that Hank, after being told that he's a member of the royal family, will say, this isn't my first time smoking the pipe with someone of your standing. Back home in America, I once sat down and shared a pipe with none other than James Garfield. Now, he wasn't president yet at the time, and of course his tenure was rather brief in the role, but I've had a time or two where I've sat down with people of standing like your own.
He says, how very interesting. It seems, Mr. Nelson, as there is more to you than what appears on the surface. It seems you have managed to occupy multiple worlds, slipping between them fairly easily, I'd gather. There is the world of the rough and tumble frontiersman, who I see sitting here before me. But then there's the man who dines with future presidents and members of the British royal family. Although there's an equal chance that I'm not actually what I say I am. I could be a diplomat from the continent, here on some very, very important business. But we shall have to explore that another time. You seem to slip between worlds, and I find this very, very fascinating.
I think he'll raise the pipe and hand it over and say, you seem to fit this environment as well as, well, wherever you come from as well.
Well, I, too, am a bit of a roamer. I find myself in different places, different people, different worlds of my own. Speaking of which, Mr. Nelson, there is a world beyond this one, you know. It's like our own world. It is, in fact, our world, but impossibly ancient. It's a world where the sun is new, and where old spirits and old gods play and make war with each other. I have seen it with all my eyes. It is magnificent and terrible and bloody and every other awful, wonderful thing you can imagine. But perhaps that's just the opium talking.
I have entertained such visions myself while under the influence of the pipe, but you speak from, it seems to me, almost a place of authority. What relationship do you have to such a place?
It's probably best to ignore me for now, Mr. Nelson. Please, continue to smoke. Let us enjoy this time together. And I hope it's not the last one.
I'm interested if we're considering having smoked with a president being a tall tale and trying to push for that move here as well.
I do like it. I don't know if it has to be, tall tale has to be completely unbelievable, right?
Okay.
That's at least conceivable.
Okay.
I think we're going to take a little break. Before we go, though, I do want to tell you what the Mask of the Sun is. Each hunter must narrate a dream they once had of primordial earth, back in time across the ancient seas, back in time when the spirits walked, when the sun was new and the old gods held court. Think on it. Let's take 5. So an update. It looks like Adrian will be able to join us for the remainder of the session, but is taking care of something right now. So we'll catch Adrian up whenever he gets back. But I think it's okay because we left green in kind of a good sort of place to be. We don't need green right now anyway, necessarily. So let's pick up with, I want to go back to that scene with the man in the sun mask. Mr. Nelson, he's speaking of strange other worlds, an ancient world. And that is also what the Mask of the Sun is as well. Every hunter has to narrate a dream they had of the ancient earth. And we'll talk about those later, but I am curious just how you feel having this very cryptic conversation, this very, very mysterious individual.
I think like Hank has taken a few drags from the opium pipe at this point, so he's relaxed to say the least. And I think he's above all just sort of intrigued by what this fellow has to say. I think he is like in the same way that you like listen with attention when you run into a stranger and they start telling you a story about their day or something that's like an interesting story. He's like, you know, he's interested. He's like, sure, tell me more about this primordial existence where the gods walked the earth.
Take a condition called the Sons of Another World.
All right.
Mr. Quinn, you are just rummaging about the little lobby here as if you should be here. And you are going through the desk when you reach and you grab something that slices your palm open, and you withdraw your hand from the drawer, and you have bits of glass stuck in your hand, and your palm and fingers have been sliced up. I'm giving you a condition, sliced up hand. And the attendant says, "Oh my, what happened?" He's coming out of the office. What, my goodness, what are you doing? Did you just reach into my desk? And he's sort of like trying to help you with your bloody hand, right? And he says, I'm so sorry. This is a very unusual thing. That Mr. Beale brought that in today. And he's sort of like helping you, and says, he'll see you now. And he'll kind of like wrap the cloth around your hand and says, I knew I shouldn't have been keeping this around here. And he starts to gather up these like glass pieces from the drawer, and you can see that it's like it was like a glass figurine of a tiger or some kind of big cat that was shattered. And Mr. Beale sees you and remembers you from last night and says, "Oh, hello. What's there seems to be. I'm very sorry. What's going on out here?" He kind of steps out there. What is the matter? What? My goodness! What happened to your hand?
Oh, it appears I just cut it. No problem. And I assume there's like blood on a finger, and I will just like suck it right off.
He says, "Oh, what? Yes, well," and the attendant will say, "Oh, it was that little figurine you brought in today, sir." And Harold says, well, terribly sorry about that." And he'll kind of invite you into the office. Says, "Strange things always seem to follow me, as you well know. That figurine is something that, well, it was in my office back at the house, and it just fell off the shelf of its own accord. I was going to have someone who's experienced in these matters take a look at it to see if there is something spectral in nature going on."
Lucky for you, I came along then.
"Oh, is this something that you are very familiar with?" It's Mr. Quinn, yes?
Yes. It's not something that I personally am an expert in, but I know people. I have a man, he knows people. You should just give it to me. I'll bring it back to the house. We will look at it. I'll let you know.
Yes. Well, and my wife spoke to me and told me that you actually came by St. James's Street, yes?
Yes, an associate and I did. It was a lovely home that you have.
Yes. Well, she's had quite a fright, and not just because our townhouse may or may not be haunted. It seems like there's a lot of things going on, a lot of strange occurrences happening all at once. And well, I'm a numbers man, and the numbers tell me that I should be worried. Should I be worried?
Should you? How long have these occurrences been going on for?
Since we moved in, to be quite honest. The incident with poor Ginny stands out as the most alarming, of course. But, well, so things like this, like the little figurine falling off the shelf, things like that happen all the time.
And you only just now thought, oh, I could turn this into a business venture.
Well, one has to be very careful about how one approaches such things, Mr. Quinn. I mean, there's all sorts of considerations to take into account. The advertisements, safety, of course. You've got to figure out the whole business plan, right? If you're going to do such a thing. It would be really something if we could confirm that there was in fact a ghost at the house. Maybe that's something you and your associates could help out with. I would really like to be able to tell the papers that some genuine spiritologists have looked into the matter and have determined that 18 St. James's Street is, oh, I don't know, the most haunted place in London, say.
Sure. I mean, for a fee, of course.
Oh, of course. I mean, we can talk percentages. We can talk, could give you a point or two, I suppose.
No. I need something more valuable than money.
Oh, well, what could that possibly be?
I don't know. What's valuable to you?
Well, money, but my family, I suppose.
Interesting. Well, I'm sure we'll settle on something.
Yes. Sorry about your hand. I probably shouldn't be keeping shards of glass around the office.
Yeah. Well, pain is pleasure, they say.
Not financial pain, though. And we'll cut that there. Mr. Talford, while you're down there, looking at paintings of or drawings of suns and bodies. You'll also notice a pair of long sapphire blue opera gloves placed on a crate fairly recently because there's no dust on them.
So I'm assuming that's my mastermind clue.
It is.
All right.
Then what?
So I have a plan of what I want to do, but I think I need to do my Mask of the Sun thing first.
Go for it.
Okay, so yeah, so I think it's just like a waking dream, really. Like it's another one of the things where like I just sort of my awareness sort of dissolves, right? And I like come back in somewhere else. And it's a very like pristine and pastoral land, and like, but in front of me there's this huge mountain that's made of like, some sort of like ivory or something. So it's just very blindingly white mountain. And so I trek up the mountain and see some of the biblically accurate angels flying about the place and all of that. Very strange. And but at the top, sitting in the throne at the top of this mountain is a man, and he has like fire from the waist down, and he's like shiny and like hurts your eyes to even see him. But I think like peeking through, as like I fall to my knees and peeking through my fingers at him, I can see his face, and I think it's somebody I recognize. I think that I've met this person before in London, and so like as they look down at me and like their booming voice is like, "Oh, you can't be here yet," and he just like waves his hand, and I like wake up back in the cellar. But I definitely recognize this dude.
Anybody? Who is it? Who's the man?
So I think his name is Mr. Bell, and I think that he lives in London, and I think like I have like an existing relationship with him. He's one of the spirits who like I actually know fairly well.
Is he connected to Charla Bell, one of the victims at Limehouse? Or is that just happenstance?
I don't know. I don't think I know anything about him. I essentially know how to summon him, and that's it.
Okay, yeah, I'm into it. So then what?
So I think I'm going to find him. That's my plan. I don't know if that should be a night thing or a day thing.
Okay, we can probably a night thing, but we'll play it by ear. Jenny Johnson will come back down and she'll say, "So, any insight about what's going on here? Who could have done this?"
And I think I'd like gesture to the painting on the wall, and I'm like, what is the deal with that?
She says, "Oh, yes. Well, I think that must be one of my employees or maybe a nosy patron playing a trick. We sometimes have found these little drawings on the walls around here. We always scrub them off right away."
So where else have you seen him?
Oh, well, it's actually the last time was, well, it was in one of the little rooms, the one where we found Soft Jimmy on the wall. There were things scribbled on there.
So do you know what they were? Or can I talk to somebody who saw them?
She says, "Well, you're welcome to go take a look yourself."
Oh, so you haven't cleaned them?
Well, I have asked for them to be cleaned, but of course I don't know if it's been done yet.
Okay, understood. So yeah, I'll go check out the room.
Yeah. Mr. Nelson, the man in the sun mask, says, "Well, this has been a very, very stimulating afternoon, Hank. Thank you so much for your hospitality."
Oh, thank you so much for joining me. Is there a name that I can call you in case I should see you again?
Says, I can't tell you who I am, Hank. Well, I'll just tell you that I am a legendary jewel thief, and it's very important that I hide my identity while I'm in London. That's why I wear the mask.
I'm going to call you Frank. It's nice to meet you, Frank.
Enjoy the rest of your day, Hank.
I think around this time, Hank probably starts like slipping off into a opium-fueled dream of his own, trying to provide the dream of the primordial place. Jason, could you remind me what sort of the description was there of what?
I'll read it to you, yeah. It says, let me find it. Back in time across the ancient seas, back in time when the spirits walked, when the sun was new and the old gods held court. It's just a variation of the little speech he gave you.
Okay, yeah. So he slips off, and I think a little bit like his mind was already thinking about what the man in the mask had said. And so as he blinks, and his eyes are a little bit watery, and he still sort of sees the room and the curling smoke, and he blinks and he just sees the curling smoke, and he blinks again, and rather than having any walls at all, he's like sitting on a rock in a vast plain, also just with swirling smoke just sort of emanating from the ground. And at first he just like feels like he's alone in this place and that there's nothing here. And then like emerging from the fog, from this smoke from the ground, he sees what he instantly recognizes as like the shape of a horse. He's ridden on many horses in his time. Only this one, as it draws nearer and he gets a clearer vision of it, seems particularly different. It's like its insides are on the outside. It's an inverted horse, and it's just this rippling, mass of flesh in the shape of a horse, with like the curling sort of horse jaw going up deep into its skull, all sort of revealed. And he feels like he should be disturbed by this, but instead he feels like a connection, a kinship, a recognition, that like this is the way it should be. This is the way all things should be. And this horse like trots up to him, and like it leans down and like clearly like almost like makes eye contact with him, and then it turns and it like begins to walk away, and he reaches out to it, and he looks to see his hand, and rather than his hand there's like a sort of not quite skeletal, but there's a appendage with like a pincer on the end, and he like drops his hand out of his view, and closes his eyes. And when he opens them again, I'm assuming several hours have passed, and he's back in the Opium Den.
Very nice. Mr. Quinn, once you're done with Harold Beale, what do you do? You do have a date.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have to roleplay the date though. I think my next move would probably just be to go back to the house, and like I've got the watches, and do some investigating, and hold up my end of the deal with Mr. Beale, who doesn't know what he's going to be paying me yet.
Indeed. I like the watches. What do you do with the watches?
So we have this like recurring thing happening in the house where like the timepieces have stopped everything we've seen. And also I think that at least one of the clocks had that like spiral glass. So my plan is really just to like take the watches and like walk around room to room and see what happens.
in Hargrave House. Yeah. Okay, I like that. Do a information move with reason, I guess.
Oh, I think my reason's bad. Where am I here? Da, da, da. That is a 5.
A 5. You hear some you hear the shattering of glass coming from one of the rooms. We'll say coming from Mr. Taliford's room. You're the only one there at the house right now, and you definitely heard glass shattering. What do?
With the confidence of a cisgendered man, I'm just gonna walk right up and see what's going on.
When you step into Mr. Taliford's room, you will see on the ground what appears to be, let me see how to describe it. There's a man on the floor right below a shattered window that goes into Mr. Taliford's room. Mr. Taliford's room, like all the rooms, are on the second floor. This man is crawling desperately toward you. He has bits of the glass stuck in him. He has like quite long, luxuriant blonde hair, very pale. And he's sort of competing with you in the tight trousers game, I think. The tight trousers and pirate shirt game. He crawls towards you, and you smell this really, really like intense smell of like burning or smoke coming off of him. And he says, sorry, hi, excuse me. And he crawls up onto Mr. Taliford's bed and pulls the curtains of Mr. Taliford's canopy bed closed, and then breathes. What do?
Mr. Taliford has been up to some very interesting things. I'm just going to say, do you require some kind of assistance, sir?
No, just if you don't mind, I just need to stay here for the next few hours. I hope that won't be any trouble.
Are you an acquaintance of Mr. Taliford's?
No, but I actually used to live here. This was my room.
We've been here for quite a while. But
well, this would have been quite a long time ago. And he's breathing.
Yes. Okay. Sure. Just
your friend, Mr. Taliford, is he going to be back soon? He won't be angry if he finds me here, will he?
Oh, I doubt that very much. I'm sure you're safe. Just don't make a mess, I guess.
Yes. Sorry about the window. And he pulls the curtains a little a little more tightly closed.
I'm just gonna leave the room and close the door and say out loud to myself, Mr. Taliford and I will definitely be talking about that.
I'm going to give you a condition here. How are you feeling right now, first of all? That'll kind of determine how the condition goes.
I think I'm feeling intrigued / impressed as though I have learned something about Mr. Taliford, because at least Mr. Quinn is convinced that this is Mr. Taliford's lover of some kind.
This
And
is doing.
I
yeah,
feel like
yeah.
probably understands that this person is a vampire, but like nonplussed by that.
Yeah, I mean, we've already established that you all know what vampires
Yeah.
are. That's not like, there's nothing surprising about that.
I'm not like, gotta murder this vampire. I'm just like, oh yeah, he's fucking a vampire. That makes sense.
Take a condition, intrigued by Mr. Taliford. That sounds good. Well, what an interesting turn of events. Mr. Nelson, where did we leave you?
He'd just woken up.
You were daydreaming. That's right.
Yeah, just woken up from a opium stupor.
Yeah, what do you do after your stupor?
How late do we think it's getting at this
It's
point?
getting pretty close to dusk. We're not quite there yet, but it's getting pretty close.
Okay. I think then he will feeling a lot better from the last day, and also like sort of dwelling on this dream a little bit, like blinking it away. He'll go around the den and start like asking people questions about the missing people, and like what they knew of them and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I like it. Do the information move with presence, I guess.
That is a 5 and a 3 is 8 plus 2 is 10.
Nice. Give you a clue real quick. So you were just kind of asking around about like, maybe about, I mean, Soft Jimmy was the one
Yeah.
the victim who was found here. There were 2 other victims, but they were found in different neighborhoods. And Jenny's going out of her way to make sure that people don't know about these murders, right? So they may not know about, they might know about Soft Jimmy, maybe if they're a regular, right? That might be it. And I think one of the workers, she will say, I've noticed something. It started happening right before Jimmy was killed. Well, at least before we found his body. I started to notice it in the days leading up to that day, although I didn't put anything together until after the fact. Jenny thinks I'm being, well, she tends to not pay attention to me. But I've noticed, well, and she'll kind of like show you, there's like a shelf with bottles of liquor. And she'll say, look. And she counts 1, 2, 3. But there's the 3rd bottle is not there. And then 1, 2, 3. The 3rd bottle is not there, the 6th bottle in this case. And then she'll say, and look over here. And there's like basically like a wall with like some scrolls, you know, like decorative scrolls hanging. And she'll say, there used to be 3 there, but now there's only 2. Jenny thinks that someone stole the 3rd one, but why would they only steal 1? Doesn't make any sense. And in any case, who would want to steal some dusty old artwork? It's probably not worth anything. And then she says, and now look at this. And she points out, Jenny has a clock, a grandfather clock. And she says, look, and you'll see the numbers 3, 6, 9, and 12 have all been removed. She says, Jenny thinks we're playing a trick on her, but I think there's a connection to all these, to whatever's going on around here. And that's your clue. Things in threes go missing, or the third thing goes missing.
Okay.
And Mr. Taliford, it does appear that they have freshly scrubbed the wall, but there might still be something there to learn. What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I'll poke around.
Yeah, take the information, move with reason.
That is a 6.
A 6. You are poking around, trying to find out what you can find. When you hear something above you, a little pitter-patter above. What do you do?
So is it above me? Is it another floor of the Opium Den, or is it the roof?
Like in the rafters.
Okay. So if I still have the lantern that I took with me down to the basement, I'll try and like shine it up into the rafters and see what's going on.
You see a pair of eyes in the rafters, glimmering in the lantern light. And you hear just like this small kind of hissing sound, like a and then whatever this is disappears higher up, climbs higher to a darker place in the rafters. And I'm giving you the condition marked by the lurker. And I think that will pretty much roll us into the dusk phase. Let's go to our phase switcher. Let's see how the quickening is going to go tonight. Mr. Nelson, go ahead and roll the quickening.
That was remarkably good. I have a 6 and a 2 is 8, and it's vital. No, we discovered it was sensitivity.
I think you get to pick either composure or sensitivity, your choice.
Okay, well, both are 0, so that's an 8.
All right, you're going to keep it together, but you'll keep it together, but just barely. You will get a condition drained. Now here, I recommend you just mark the Janus mass to bump up the result because it's the same effect. So,
does it matter that I already have the drain condition? Just
oh, you already drained. Oh wow. Yeah. Well, okay. So regardless, I think you're marking the Janus mass one way or the other. It's up to you.
Yep. So that's then the mask of the past or the future?
Or the future. Yeah, your choice.
Okay. Okay, I'll mark a mask of the future, actually.
Your body is stronger and faster, and you manage to keep the quickening in check. You roll with advantage when taking actions that use vitality until the next dawn phase. Let's go to, we don't have Adrian back yet, so we'll just not worry about the factotum's move yet. And let's do a paint a scene about Hargrave House. We've already done the trophy room. Let's now do the Conservatory. A former hunter in residence turned out to be the legendary killer known as Roger the Reaver. This was Roger the Reaver's favorite room in Hargrave House. A conservatory, of course, is in this context, is like a room with plants and things, right? Like, and looks out into the back garden, like a sunroom, sort of. We haven't done that one yet, right? I don't think we have. Did the trophy room last time. Roger the Reaver. This was his favorite room. Looking around, how do you know that? This is the serial killer that used to live in Hargrave House.
I think all of the plants in the conservatory are rare poisonous plants.
So all of the gardening utensils are just ridiculously sharp.
I think a combination of all of the plants in here and also just its location at like the far rear of Hargrave House. I think if someone were to scream their loudest in here, no one in the house could hear it.
Very nice, very nice. It looks like Adrian is back with us, just not on camera. Green, do you want to contribute to Roger the Reaver?
Yes. Let me see. I have to. No, let me jump that, and because I don't have it in front of me, so I'll just go for the move, the factotum's move of getting something from someone else's quarters.
Oh, you want to do that? Yeah.
Yeah.
According to chat, you want to take the bottle of brandy from Mr. Nelson, right?
Yes, that's what I would like to do. Sneak in there because it has been used, so it's probably empty, maybe kept around because it was a particular nice one, and I'm going to get the empty bottle and see what I can do with it later.
Yeah. Let's go to, I'll just pop that over there for you. So that's now in your personal quarters unmarked, and that is Ghost of Hargrave House, that move. And good. In that case, let's continue on. Let's talk about the night phase. First of all, it sounded like you guys were wanting to answer a question maybe before we even do the night phase. If that's the case, we can do it whenever you want. But once, what will your characters be doing though during the night phase, regardless of whether a question gets answered or not? Or maybe it depends on whether a question is answered.
I think for me, at least, it's depending on whether or not we answer a question.
Does someone have a theory about one of these questions that they want to propose?
I mean, I think I have a theory for which part of the house is the ghost attached to. But I could also see us maybe going for a quickening ritual. We have enough clues that we could go straight for it.
Oh, for the quieting ritual, yeah.
Yeah.
I know Alicia was kind of dancing around a theory. Did you want to share that with us, Alicia?
It's a little bit undeveloped, but my theory is actually that there is a ghost. The ghost is real, but I don't think that the ghost killed the maid. I think that Harold Beale killed the maid so that he could make some money, because we've already established that they're like broke and poor. So I actually think that if we're going to do a quieting ritual down that theory, it's actually like acknowledging the ghost. Like, I think the ghost is like, fuck you, I'm here.
The ghost is a thing. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. Yeah. I like it. That's pretty good. I mean, you've got 7 clues currently, I think. And that means you can divide them up between the 2 questions if you wanted to have a go at both, but they'd be done kind of at poor rolls, but that's up to you.
So if we resolve the ghost question, the the quieting ritual, then the threat is gone, and we just don't do the first question.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'm kind of curious about that custom move.
Yeah,
so.
me too. I think we.
I'm fine if we want to figure out where the ghost is attached first. I mean, we're not like in a rush. We only have the 2 threats right now. We, whatever. It's fine. If we want to answer that question, I'm down for it.
Well, you know what? We haven't really taken advantage of unlocking some custom moves yet. Yeah, I'm down to answer the first question.
Okay. Well, what's your thinking then?
Given the wild experience that that Hank had in the attic, I'm sort of leaning towards the attic myself for where it's sort of bonded to the house.
That's where the baby is at, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense in the story, but what are the clues that might help inform this?
I could see the sensation of fingers tightening around your neck. I think that maybe they were like killed in the attic long ago, and either strangled, or maybe what we've mistaken for hands is really like a noose. Maybe they were hung up there. I could see something like that.
We also have that like shattered mirror in the circular pattern. What if we say that there's like a stained glass window or something that has that sort of
That's pretty good. Yeah,
like
that's
patterning
good
in the window?
Yeah, I like that. That's pretty good context. I'm into that a lot. We'll mark that as explained for now. That's one.
If maybe their role at the house at some point was also the cook, I could see the dishes and vessels overflowing with blood being like a hearkening to that. But that doesn't necessarily help us with where they are. That might be better suited for a quieting ritual. Do we know which room seems to burst into flames?
I think that was one of the bedrooms, if I recall correctly. Your clues are not pointing toward the attic currently.
No, they are not. They are not. We might want to.
So I kind of like the kitchen, maybe. That might be easier with the dishes. And like, there was all the stuff in the kitchen that the workers had done to ward off spirits. I thought that was where you were going anyway. You said that Hank had a bad experience there.
That's true.
So
No, the kitchen was a time. And actually, like, seeing as like that happened despite all the wording and stuff that happened there, I could certainly see an argument for that's where actually the ghost's presence is the strongest.
Yeah, that's where the novel was also.
Yep.
Yeah, it's where the novel was. I think it explains the dishes overflowing with blood. I think that where did the sensation of fingers tightening around your neck happen? Who was that to and where?
I think that was when I was in my vision. And I think I felt that when the maid died.
That's right. That was in the dining room though. I mean, I think 2 of the clues definitely could point towards the kitchen. That feels reasonable to me. Yeah.
Did we get any context for where he had gotten the glass tiger figurine?
No, but you can add that now.
I was thinking that maybe as part of the like protections, that there were like a variety of little figurines in the kitchens, and that this glass tiger could have been among them once.
Almost
and
like
just
little, like charms or something.
Yeah, like basically it's a little charm, and the fact that it's been shattered is like the ghost breaking past the charms.
And so flames in general would be like cooking and stuff too.
Oh,
right?
yeah,
So just like
that's a good point.
thematically,
Yeah.
if the ghost was of a cook or something.
Yeah, I'm kind of into that. That's feeling better then. I think it's a decent justification for the die roll so far. 4 clues, flat roll. Are you all okay with that?
Sure.
Take it away, whoever wants to roll it.
I got my dice here. Why not? Ah, if I can't drop it on the floor. One of those is a 6, though. Hey, that's a 6 and a 4. That's 10.
It's correct. The Old Bones move is unlocked. Let me read it to you. Old Bones. When you have the cosmic passage marked, that's on your Mask of the Future, and touch, listen to, or otherwise attune to a building's architectural details, roll with sensitivity. On a hit, a ghost will appear and answer a single question you pose to it, or perform a small task, your choice. Any answers it gives can be in the form of a clue at the keeper's discretion. On a 10 plus, as above, and the ghost will not ask for anything in return. So essentially, walk into places and find the ghosts tied to the buildings. Yeah, that's yours. Question answered. Let's continue with desk face preparations. So, Mr. Nelson, what are you going to do tonight?
I think Mr. Nelson is going to return to the Opium Den and try to communicate with the ghost of Soft Jimmy.
I love it. Mr. Quinn.
I think that I was gonna go do more Beale stuff, but I think that now there's this vampire in the house, and what's up with Mr. Taliford? And something that the vampire said has like piqued my interest, which is that he used to live here. And I think in the previous game I established that in the trophy room there was a picture of us that hadn't been taken yet. So presumably there are pictures of other people who have lived in the house. So I'm gonna go see if I can find this vampire.
Okay, very good. Mr. Taliford, what are you doing tonight?
So I need to go find my guy from my vision. I'm gonna summon this god spirit thing.
Sounds good. And Green, you're with us. What are you doing tonight?
I think Green is going to accompany Mr. Quinn. We might find out something about how that works if they're on the hunt, and Mr. Quinn is like the squire. That Green is the squire.
Very good, very good. All right, that all sounds great to me. If nobody has any other changes, then that's what we'll aim for at least. Let's go back to the desk phase steps. Resolve any Janus Mass prompts that remain unresolved. We just got a new one that was marked by Mr. Nelson. Mr. Nelson, you can wait until the dawn phase if you wish, or you can do it right now. It's up to you. You're muted.
Thanks. I'll do it right now. I think that after returning to Hargrave House from visiting the Opium Den, I think he goes by his room and there's a letter there tucked under the door. And it's just normal mail. I imagine somebody had collected things from the mailbox, saw that it was his, and just tucked it under there for him. And he opens it to find a letter from his mother saying that, it's partly just an update that, it'd been a long time since they heard from him and she was reaching out. But around the midpoint in the letter, it like takes a turn and she just, she talks about how there were some very important people who had been like asking about him, and that it's probably, it'd be really good if he came and visited home soon. Even his father missed him, which like Hank knows is just absolutely not true. And she like repeatedly in the second half of the letter like makes mention of like, oh yeah, no, there were some really important people who came asking for you, and like I feel like you really need to come home. It's the right time, we've got everything set up for you. And it's just like that's the sort of letter that he gets, and he's a little bit puzzled by it, I think.
And this is your moss-covered gate, right?
Yes, this is the moss-covered gate.
And
so I need to tell the keeper to put the Pinkerton threat in play.
Indeed, indeed. Very good. So it
I
sounds
think
like you.
Green could also do the Mask of the Sun prompt, the dream.
Oh yeah, please do. We'll get to that in a moment. It sounds like, Mr. Nelson, it sounds like you've been ignoring these letters then, if the Pinkerton threat is in play. Very good. Green, go ahead and give us your Mask of the Sun.
So I think while Mr. Quinn is out, Green takes a nap and dreams of this mountainous land where there's something going on, like a festival, and there's a god being worshipped by a group of worshippers, all kind of dancing around the god, and they suddenly select one of them from the group of worshippers to join them in the middle of the circle, and to dance with them closely, and kind of touches them all around. And that's kind of a dream, that to being selected as the god's partner, and he wakes up back at work.
Nice. Thank you. Let's talk about the unseen. London at night. Where do we want to go? Where do we want to go? Where do we want to go? Let's do my favorite. Since I was informed that you're all interested in making this gayer. Let's do that. Let's go to Madame Morvain's. This is on the top row, far right side. If you want to follow along. Madame Morvain's boy tour. Powdered princelings and delightful demigods, all agape for your amusement. Madame Morvain's famous guidebook is a walking tour of all the best male sex workers in London. Ship Captain Jackson Flint Broadmoor has just come in for a 3-day port of call, the well-worn guidebook clutched beneath his arm. This was a real thing in Victorian times, by the way. They were guides, essentially, to such things. Let's go with assignments. David, you have the first one. Go to Adrian, you have the second one. Alicia, you have the third one. Dan, you have the fourth one. Let's take 5 and we'll come back into the night phase. All right, so at the top of the night phase, I'll give you a reminder that we'll be bouncing back and forth between the unseen and your own scenes, and you want to try to get at least one echo in the night, which is a thematic or visual or sensory connection between the two. David, Captain Broadmoor's first stop on Madame Morvain's is Prince Louis, powdered, soft, covered in yards of satin and lace. He invites Captain Broadmoor into his boudoir. What distinctly feminine touches do we see in Prince Louis's room?
We see that, like, all of the colors in the room are soft pastels of yellows and greens and oranges. And on any flat surface that can take the weight of it, there are, vases with flowers. But the most striking thing in the room is there's a desk where Prince Louis prepares himself, and there is on little stands, there are a series of increasingly outlandish wigs, true to the times. I think those are some of the features in the room.
Mr. Taliford, what is your first step in contacting this entity you seek to contact?
So I think he has a house that I know, like I can go to his house, and I don't think he's immediately there, but like when you walk into the house, so normally, you know, Taliford can feel all the spirits around at all times, and like as soon as he walks through the front door of this house, they're just all gone. And it's like he can feel like his anxiety level like ratchet down one notch.
Is the house abandoned? Does someone else live there? What's the deal with the house?
So it's abandoned, but like impeccably kept up. But he's never seen anyone there other than Mr. Bell.
Intriguing. I like it. Very good. We'll come back to that. Mr. Nelson, I will note that to do Old Bones, you have to have the Cosmic Passage marked. And so you may attempt to try to contact the ghost of Soft Jimmy, but you might be at the mercy of the night move rather than doing the Old Bones. But in any case,
Well, it's okay. That'll give me an excuse to mark a mask and get the Cosmic Passage.
But it sounds like you're heading to Limehouse though to go to
sure.
the Opium Den. Yeah, I like that. That's good. Yeah, I think you step into Jenny Johnston's for the second time today. It's more crowded now, a lot more people. In what other way is the energy different? And importantly, how are your feral senses informing that?
Yeah, I think every hair on Hank's body is like constantly standing at attention when he has nights like this, where he like any slight disturbance in the air, he feels and detects and knows. So I think having a place be this busy and full of people is honestly like not upsetting, but it's like a lot of information that he's taking in, because like he's sort of aware in a not necessarily a precise sense, but in a general sense of where everyone is. And so this many people just sort of, you know, milling about or just, you know, existing, just like sort of feeling their breaths in the air, it's all information that he has to take in. And I think the energy is a bit different. When he was there earlier, it was a much more sort of mild and languid time. A lot of people who can make it there during the day are people who are absolutely there to take their opium and, you know, leave the world for a little while. And I think that this time of night, it's as much entertainment as it is that experience. And so I think now is when you have more people like Soft Jimmy who are here offering services other than just the opium. And so I think that, you know, sex workers, I think that, you know, probably there's like maybe some food or other things going around as well, food and drink. And so I think that the energy is a little bit more jovial rather than as somber as it was earlier.
Good. Green, someone, a man by the sound of it, is singing opera in Mr. Taliford's room right now. What do you do?
I think Green walks up to the door, kind of very slowly, every step very considerate, and puts the ear to the door.
You hear the singing, but then it stops. And the person says in Latin, which, do you understand Latin, do you think?
No.
Says something to you in Latin. What do you do?
I think kind of we see Green slowly moving back in this very considered way and then knocking at the door and saying like, "I've made dinner."
The man says, I fear you probably don't have anything that I'd like to eat. That's not a commentary on your cooking, of course.
Well, I can make something else if you just tell me what you desire.
Oh, good. So that's open to negotiation then. Splendid. Come in.
Green opens the door.
You see this man, this presumed vampire, according to Mr. Quinn. Long blonde hair, feeling much more energetic and than he was previously. Pirate shirt, tight trousers. He says, thank you so much for your hospitality. I'm feeling much better now. Your employer, I take it, please let them know that I appreciate their discretion.
Green will say, he has this bottle, empty brandy bottle in the hand, will say, well, I can fill this up with something that is more to your tastes. Just let me know what.
Yes. I would like that very much. Let's go have a word with your Mr. Quinn, I think I gathered earlier.
Yes, sure.
Mr. Quinn, where do we find you right now?
I guess probably in wherever the sort of like photos of previous Hargrave House hunters would be, like scouring each one to see if I can find this man.
There is a portrait gallery with legendary hunters, with paintings of them. And you may find one that could be this man, though the style of dress would have been different because it seems to be from quite a different era. Confirming your suspicions about him, I think. And you'll hear, and I suppose at this point, Green, do you come find Mr. Quinn?
It seems here we have a guest that has some particular requirements for sustenance. Mr. Quinn, what shall we do? Shall we have dinner together? And I put something. Looking at you, questioning me.
Oh, Green. Did our guest tell you what he wanted to eat?
Not yet.
Well, I don't think anything that you're going to cook is going to satisfy him.
Well, I'm willing to go out of my way. I can go grab something. I'll go to the market, or I know it's late, but
perhaps you should go and visit the butcher.
While you're having this conversation, there's a ring, 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 ring at the door. Ring, 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 ring.
Answer the door first.
I will.
And you hear your visitors say, I'll get it. Let's cut back to Madame Morvain's, to Captain Broadmoor and his walking tour. Adrian, Anthony the Adonis, whose body is rubbed with golden powder. How do we know Anthony is dying of consumption?
We see Anthony on a bed, kind of very weakly laying there and being massaged with this, or kind of decorated, let's say, with this golden powder. But he's extremely thin. You can see the bones through his skin, kind of, and he only weakly groans. when he gets touched.
So, Mr. Talford, what comes next once you get this house of Mr. Bell, he said?
Yes. So I think like when you walk in, there's just an altar in the middle of the room, and I've brought wine and grain, and so I just pour the wine over the altar, dump out the grain, light it on fire, and that's pretty much it.
Sounds like you're doing rites of salt and smoke.
I think so. Yeah.
Let me take a look at your conditions and see if anything would apply here. Marked by the lurker. I don't think that's going to apply. You can go ahead and just roll as you wish.
So I think I might actually add the piece of silver to the altar and make that part of the
very good.
The ritual as well.
Nice. Roll with advantage.
So that gives me a 9.
You get your effect, but also a complication. Your choice. You have a list there.
Okay. So my effect, I'm not sure any of these necessarily apply. Maybe communicating with someone or something I don't share a language with.
Okay.
And the complication has a problematic side effect.
Very good. I like it. What do you suppose? Tell me about this entity. What does he normally appear as? What is his deal?
So I think he is like, he looks like a Victorian gentleman. He's dressed in like nice clothes, not like ostentatious. But he's beautiful. He's the only person I've ever seen who like puts Mr. Quinn to shame. And he actually has like a soft golden glow that like surrounds him.
Nice. I like it. Mr. Nelson. So what do you do, Mr. Nelson? You're there in this more sort of convivial and jovial Opium Den tonight. Jenny, of course, is very busy, but she sees you and gives you a nod of acknowledgement. The man in the sun mask is there as well. He gives you a nod as well.
Hank will nod and maybe like give a little wink to the man in the sun mask, but he is here on other business this evening, and I think he goes and finds a different sex worker who's here this evening, a gentleman who's, I think, like not as extensively as the Adonis mentioned earlier, but he's like his face has been lightly dusted in gold powder. And he speaks with him and asks about where Soft Jimmy would usually, like which rooms did he usually attend to in order to go to those ones and try to contact him.
The young man says, an American? I hate to disappoint you, but Soft Jimmy's not with us anymore. I'm certainly happy to stand in, though.
Well, I unfortunately am here on business rather than pleasure this evening. If you could just direct me to where Soft Jimmy usually, where he usually worked.
Well, sure. And he takes you to what's essentially a private room, the rear of the Opium Den, and slides it open, the door. And you see quite a few people in there enjoying the opium and each other. He says, looks like there's room for 2 more. What do you think?
Well, perhaps a little bit of company would be nice. Care to join me?
He says, yeah, indeed. And he will go inside the room with you. Green, it sounds like your visitor is going to answer the door. What do you do?
I think I'm gonna stay around and say, to let them go to the door and then say to Mr. Quinn, so when you're talking about the butcher, are you talking about blood?
Yes, that is what I mean. But actually, I've had a thought. I had an unfortunate accident today that might solve our problem.
You cannot. Are you sure?
Oh, what's a little blood to someone like me?
It's very precious. It's precious, and we. But so what are you supposing that we do?
Well, we'll just squeeze it out into a beautiful glass and we'll serve it. He can't touch me, obviously.
Whatever you say. I'm going to get a glass right away.
Are you going to use the decanter or the brandy container?
I don't think the brandy container really fits here because that's not for Mr. Quinn's blood. So I think I'm going to get like the most expensive glass that we have.
Very good. This is intriguing. While you're doing this, your visitor will call back and say, is there a Mr. Nelson who lives here?
Yes, they are. They live here.
Could someone go get him? This gentleman wants to speak to Mr. Nelson.
Right away, if they are available.
They are not currently.
So I think Green is not aware of that, so they probably go kind of scuttle through the house to see, and then call from there. It seems Mr. Nelson is not home.
Says, all right, I'll let him know. And you can hear some conversation happening at the front door. What are you doing in the meantime, Mr. Quinn?
I guess at this point in time, I will actually just go and approach the door and see who is here for Mr. Nelson and ensure they're still alive.
Just as you approach, your visitor is closing the door, and he turns and says, that wound on your hand that I smelled earlier. Are you thinking of opening it up again for me?
Oh, my man is already taking care of that.
All right. Where shall I go and await this splendid libation that you're going to offer me?
To the dining room, obviously. Green has prepared a dinner.
Yes, the dinner, of course. I feel very, very rude. My name is Julius.
Ethan Quinn. You used to live here, you say?
Yes. I am a former resident of Hargrave House.
I like your pants.
Thank you. I quite find your sartorial choices very intentional and intriguing. To the dining room.
All right, we go to the dining room.
Indeed. Alicia, Gianni, an Italian temple, olive-skinned, breathtaking. How do we know Gianni is having the time of his life?
So this is like a close-up shot of a bare-chested Gianni, sort of like laying back, and you can see his chest and his face. and a hand like comes up and like drags down his body as he starts to smile, and then another hand comes up, and then a third hand until he's literally just like covered in like a lot of hands, like 8, 10, lots of hands. And you just see this like huge smile come over his face in this like throes of ecstasy mid-orgy.
Mr. Talford, Mr. Bell speaks with a sort of, you interpreted his words, but if anybody was watching this scene, it would just sound like strange, muffled, like a strange, muffled, unintelligible voice. A little bit like if you've ever played the video game Control, like when you call the board of directors, right? It's a little bit like that. And he sort of steps forward and he says, "Ah, have you come to return what belongs to me?"
No.
So that's the way you're going to play it then.
Well, I'm sure I don't have any idea what you're talking about. I've come.
Don't play games with me, Mr. Talford. I saw my creature crawling into your bed only hours ago.
Again, I haven't been home all day.
So that's the way we're going to do this then. Very well. Have you come to gloat?
I don't think so.
Then why are you here, Mr. Talford?
Well, you know, I'm not even entirely sure myself, but I've had these visions. I found a dead body of a woman who maybe looked a bit like you. And, you know, I guess I also maybe just wanted to see you.
This is good. I think to get anything out of him, you need to make... I don't know. This feels like a situation. There's something going on that he's irritated about, that you don't have all the information you need to deal with. I think it makes the situation kind of dangerous. Let's do the night move. What are you afraid is going to happen right now if this interaction goes badly?
I'm afraid he's just gonna like essentially evict me and cut me off and like, you know, banish me from his presence.
And it's worse than that. I think that that's pretty good. It's worse than that. He will take some of your power as well. Go ahead and roll with sensitivity, please.
So that is a 7.
Let's read the move. You do it or hold steady, but there's a complication or cost. I describe what it looks like. The complication is going to be a condition of some sort, but I think something to do with the interaction, but we'll keep the scene going. He says, "I'm intrigued, Mr. Talford. You have the nerve to come here after taking something that belongs to me and then giving me this, frankly, paltry offering in order to call me here, just so you can pretend like you don't know what's going on. It's incredibly, incredibly bold of you, but I am intrigued by this boldness. And so I will let you enjoy my presence here. I will embrace you to the warmth of my being, if only long enough to figure out how to get my revenge on you. What do you do, Mr. Talbot?
I think I just like pour a glass of wine for myself out of this sacrificial wine and like kick back on the sofa and see where the night goes.
He approaches you, golden glow. He says, I have to tell you, Mr. Taliford, you are inviting. You're inviting my anger right now. This little transaction will come at a very, very high price. Is it a price you're willing to pay?
Well, I mean, anything worth doing comes at a price.
Let's go to Mr. Nelson. Do you enjoy the evening in the Opium Den?
Yeah. I think he becomes a bit distracted, just like returning to this place where he so often goes to for pleasure and relaxation. I think he came with every strong intention of conducting some business from the outset, but I think he lets himself enjoy the pleasures of the den first. He engages in all of the revelry we've described thus far in that room with both the gentleman who he invited in with him, as well as the other guests present. And it's not for many hours later, I think, that he remembers why he originally came.
What do you do once you remember?
I think like half dressed and still a little bit unsteady on his feet, Hank goes over to one of the closest walls, and he like presses his hand and then like his cheek against it. He sort of like leans on it for support and like breathily mutters into it, like, tell me your stories, and like runs his hand down the wall, and like I guess tries to connect.
Interesting. Do the information move with sensitivity, I guess.
Okay. I cannot keep things on my table today. Wow. That's astonishing. That's a 6 and a 5. That's 11.
Nice. We'll come back to it. The dining room. Green, tell us about dinner.
So the first thing we see is that basically Green motions for our guests to sit, and then takes this beautiful large glass out and puts it on the table, and Mr. Quinn holds his hand over the glass, and with extreme care and very kind of caressing touch, Mr. Green will put kind of a hand on Mr. Quinn's hand, and we see the hand really in the second hand as well, kind of very softly squeezing. So drop by drop, the blood drops into the glass. And it's these three hands, kind of almost interlocking, and then Green takes away the hands and says, I think this is enough. I cooked your favorite dinner to Mr. Quinn. Please take a seat. I'll bring it momentarily.
After Mr. Green leaves, Julius sips the blood. And he says, Mr. Quinn, you have the most interesting blood I've ever tasted. There's something remarkably unusual about it. One does not often describe blood as having a vintage, but I feel like yours has a vintage. It's been around for a long time. Have I guessed correctly?
I believe that you and I may have that in common.
Yes, perhaps so. He says, listen to me, Mr. Quinn, and listen to me carefully. I'm on the run. There is, we shall say, a spurned lover, quite unhappy with me at the moment. I'm doing my best to keep away. I was wondering if perhaps I could stay here for a time within the safety of Hargrave House's walls.
So you aren't an acquaintance of Mr. Taliford then?
You keep mentioning this, Mr. Taliford. I have not yet had the pleasure, although I'm sure I will at some point. Have the pleasure, that is.
Well, I might be willing to make a deal to allow you to stay in my home, safely, protected. But I'll need something in return.
Yeah, of course. I always pay my way. How can I help you? What can I do?
I have over the years amassed a collection of things that are important to people. What is important to you?
And he says, I shall have to give that some thought, Mr. Quinn. But I am certainly willing to play along. Maybe we'll discover what's important to me together.
I'm intrigued.
As am I. I would like for you to go ahead and scar your reflection, please, Mr. Quinn. And let us go to our last stop on Madame Morvain's. Dan, Thomas, a rather plain young man, barely a man, who is clean and able. How do we know Thomas is doing this out of desperation?
So I think we see, like, as the sky is starting to lighten a little bit, we see Thomas leaving the bordello and going to the chemist and like handing all of his money over to the chemist in exchange for medicine that he takes back to like the warehouse in the docks where he's squatting with his little brother and gives it to him.
Once you and Mr. Bell have finished your business, what do you do?
So I want to ask him about, I think that the Bell who was killed, I feel like this is a Zeus turned into a swan sort of situation. So I think that's really like what I want to get at.
You want to ask about Charla Bell? The woman
I
who's
do,
killed?
yeah.
Yeah. I like it. Do the information move with presence, given everything that's gone down tonight?
Oh, I think that's a 12.
Nice.
Yes. Oh no, sorry, presence. That's an 11.
Although it's probably sensitivity because it's a supernatural creature.
Yeah, if it's sensitivity, then it's a 12.
Yeah, that's the rules of the game. If it's a supernatural creature, it has to be sensitivity. So yeah, take it at 12. It's fine.
Great.
He says, Charla Bell. The name has some familiarity to me. That's certainly true. I think I understand better what you're at now. He walks over to the altar and he picks up the silver piece. He says, is this what I think it is?
I think you know what it is.
You are a very, very surprising man, Mr. Taliford. This is probably one of the most sacred objects in your Christian church. And here you are, giving it to me in payment for a dalliance and some information.
I don't have much use for the Christian church these days.
Well, yes. Ms. Bell, of course, is something of a person known to me. Her husband, at least, is known to me. Her husband being something of my progeny, which there are many in London. I can't say I know her or him well enough, but I do know what you're at. You want to know what killed her. I think you know what killed her. City would seem to have lots of such creatures running about lately, running free, as it were. I don't know much, but I know this. Ms. Bell was known to be very cruel to her young charges at the Limehouse School. Many of them sent up prayers to me to help them, as they often do. I never answered them, of course, but I'm sure they think the prayers were answered. Now let them think what they will. Well then, enjoy the rest of your evening, Mr. Taliford. He flips the coin, catches it, and disappears. That's your clue, though. Ms. Bell was known to be cruel to children. Mr. Nelson, what was your die result?
I had an 11,
You are carefully touching the walls.
which I could upgrade to a 12 in order to mark the mask that we need to use this move more formally.
You could, but I have a plan anyway, regardless.
Okay.
You're touching the walls. You're not making contact with any ghosts, but you are finding some loose pieces of plaster which fall away, crumble away, can be scratched away. And underneath, there is a faded fresco of what appears to be a Roman phalanx.
Interesting. I think Hank steps back like after he's like taken away a chunk of the wall in his hand and sort of like looks at it, and then looks at the wall and sees this crumbling fresco hidden beneath, and sort of blinks and turns back to the group of people in the room, still in just the throes of the revelry. And he sort of shrugs, drops the piece of plaster from his hand, and just says, "When in Rome," and goes back to the group.
Green. Julius finds you as he's making himself comfortable in one of the unused bedrooms. He calls out to you and says, "Oh, Green."
Yes.
"I don't need you to come by with breakfast in the morning. I tend to sleep in."
I understand. And I'm sure you will be, what you drank will be sustaining you for days to come. It's the most precious food, the most precious liquid I could ever imagine.
Well, I mean, I've certainly had worse, that's for sure. Good night. And he closes the door on your face and begins singing again.
Is this guy still in my bedroom?
No, it's another bedroom.
Okay, great.
Green stands there for a moment, kind of looking at the closed door, and then shaking his head, walks away, shaking the head.
What are you up to presently at the end of the night here, Mr. Quinn?
That is a good question. You know, even though it turns out that he's not a lover of Mr. Taliford, I'm still now more intrigued by Mr. Taliford, who is not home that I am aware of, and I would like to maybe take the opportunity to go sniff around his bedroom. It needs to be fixed up, after all.
I think you find something there. Something that is just further deepens your intrigue about Mr. Taliford. You can name it and leave it there, in which case Mr. Taliford gets to add it to personal quarters, or you can keep it and add it to your personal quarters.
Let me go read Mr. Taliford's sheet. We can come back if we want to move on while I think about this.
Indeed. And so concludes the night phase. Let's go
So
to...
I need a mastermind clue, actually.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I've been thinking about that.
Yeah, it's a weird place to get one, it feels like.
It is a weird place to get one, but not impossible. Give me a moment. It kind of just comes down to how I want to reveal it, essentially. Oh, good. As you walk outside, we'll just say this, as you step outside of Mr. Bell's home, you see people gathering on the street. All of them are looking at you. They're all wearing glass Venetian masks, like at a ball. And the masks are all the same sapphire blue color of the opera gloves that you found. They're even wearing powdered wigs, some of them, and finery. And I think as you sort of step out into the street, these people just smile and keep their eyes on you as you walk down the street. And then they laugh when they think you're out of earshot. And so, the dawn. No threat was resolved yet. Let's go to dawn questions. Everyone gets the first one. Did the hunters answer a question? Yes, you did. So everybody will get an XP for that. Let's go to Mr. Nelson. Did you experience an echo in the night, Mr. Nelson?
I did hearken back to the gold dusting.
That's right. Did you use violence to solve a problem?
Not particularly.
Did you stick out in London society for all the wrong reasons?
People kept noticing that I was an American very quickly, but I don't know if the wrong reasons bit is satisfied.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure about that either. Let's go to Green. Green, did you experience an echo in the night?
Yes, I guess with the hands, close up.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I noticed that. That was good. Did you subtly express sexual desire for your employer in the way you dress them or serve them?
I think when at least when I was caressing their hand while pressing out the blood.
I liked it. I think it satisfies it. I was into it. Did you demonstrate obsequious behavior towards your employer in front of others? I think probably in that same scene. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
Especially the
Also,
way
their blood
talked
is the
about
best
Mr. Quinn.
liquid. Yeah, exactly.
So you get advancement plus another XP. Let's go to Mr. Quinn. Did you appear or did you get an echo in the night, Mr. Quinn?
I was also gonna say like playing with the hand theme of like feeding him from my hand.
Yes, I like that. Yeah. Did you appear in London society wearing a risque or avant-garde fashion? I would say yes.
Those tight pants.
Oh yeah. Did you express a clear preference for the beautiful over the mundane?
I don't think that I did this time.
Mr. Taliford. Echo of the night?
Yeah, the gold powder and the gold glow.
The gold glow, yeah. Did you counsel someone using, yes you did, using your supernatural affinities? I remember that scene. Did you make love to a dark entity because it felt good? Yeah, you got all those. Let's keep going. Resolve any playbook or custom moves that are resolved during the night or during the dawn. We don't have any right now. Yeah. And then do we have any active Janus mask prompts? I don't know if we do, but we do have a, you have to tell us, Mr. Quinn, how the statue is changing after you let the vampire feed on you.
Yes, I think that, so it's that, as I discussed, it's that like life-size amethyst, so you can kind of see through it. And I think that actually these kind of like darkened veins have started to appear like up through the statue. Also, the item that I found in Mr. Taliford's room is a flogger with a bunch of sigils in the handle and potentially on the ends as well. And I'm going to take it.
I'm 100% gonna miss that.
You can come and use it anytime.
Very good. Let's go to let's go stars and wishes. Whoever wants to go first, take it away.
So I think my star, I really enjoyed the cozy scene equivalent with the opium and like, you know, Hank and Taliford. And I like the vulnerability aspect of it. That's really cool.
Yeah, I really like that as well. And I'm trying to figure out how to articulate the star. Just the more that I've played now of the Between, the more like as a system, each of the little disparate parts is starting to reveal how they work together. And I'm really enjoying seeing how the game comes together through play. It's been really interesting to see.
Yeah, playing it is really different than reading it, right?
Yeah,
It's like really
very.
different. It lands
Like-
really differently.
Like when I first read Brindlewood Bay, I feel like I sort of understood it pretty much right away. Whereas with the Between, it was like a little bit not like unknowable, but like sort of more difficult to grasp immediately. And so now that I'm like starting to grasp it, I'm like, oh, this is very, very neat.
Yeah, Star for me, I really enjoyed. I enjoyed that everybody wanted to push into sexy times. I thought that was really enjoyable. Everyone kind of really leaned into that. I enjoyed all the scenes with Julius. Those were very fun to role play. I liked both of the vulnerable mood scenes were really good. They just had this, they felt vulnerable, and that's the point of them. And so I really enjoyed that quite a lot. Yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at right now, the stars.
Yeah, I really liked the scene with Green like squeezing out the blood. It was like really sexy. It was a really disturbingly sexy scene, and I thought it was really good. And I just like that little peek at their relationship.
Yeah, I like the relationship a lot between Green and Mr. Quinn. It's it's kind of how I imagine the employer factotum relationship kind of goes in this game. So it's been pretty good.
So Green was not on his own today, which was nice. So I liked having some scenes with with Julius, with Mr. Quinn, and still trying to figure out what's going to happen with these watches, but we'll hopefully find out next time.
Star as well I love Julius. Julius is great. I'm very excited to see how their presence at Hargrave House affects things.
I'm intrigued by Mr. Bell. I had to really wing it there, but I'm happy with how it came out. I'm intrigued by this demon who's like a fixture in the neighborhood. Like that's a pretty interesting idea to me. Like when you think about like sort of street characters or neighborhood characters, it's a kind of a classic archetype of a character, right? Like somebody who's there in the neighborhood at the street who knows things are going on. I like the idea of there being like a demon that goes around having kids in the neighborhood and is in contact with the kids and who kind of knows things, right? And the demon is also possibly like had Julius in thrall until just a few hours ago, right? Like I just like kind of this angle. I think it's intriguing. It makes you wonder if Julius, I mean, we know why Julius ended up in Hargrave House, but it's just interesting that the timing of everything in the story is really interesting and cool.
Yeah, I like you have kind of the PC triangle thing going with Julius now. So I'm very interested to see where that goes, because Mr. Taliford is 100% just going to kill Julius the first chance he gets.
Indeed. Well, wishes. I'm very, very intrigued. I have a few wishes. I definitely want to see some of the collection items come into play. I think that would be really fun. We have Casanova's perfumes so far, but there are theoretically more. I am very interested to see what happens with the brandy bottle. I feel like there might be something there that kind of could happen. We haven't seen a thinning of the veil yet either. I think that'd be fun to see next time as well. So yeah, I think just like playbook moves are kind of what I'm wishing for. Any other stars or wishes?
I'm excited because Hank certainly did not come back that night. I'm excited for him to speak with some of the others who were there and learn that somebody had like come after him, looking for him. I'm excited to sort of see where that thread goes. When I saw the option for the moss covered gate, I thought that sounded very interesting to bring into the story. So
yeah, definitely. Anything else?
I think one of my wishes would be to start some of these Mask of the Past things for everyone. Like I want to get into everyone's, like, I want to hear a little more details. I'm curious.
Yeah, we got like a surprising amount of backstory, but it was just like through the vulnerable move mostly, but which is one of the ways. But yeah, I agree about the Mask of the Past. Anything else before we go? Okie doke. Well, that was great fun. Thank you all so much. I'm going to stop the recording.